Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for following this panel, which will focus on the need to enhance the competitiveness of EU tourism sector. I would like to welcome Mr. Ziv Tirosh, CEO and co-founder of Refundit, which is an Israeli startup that aims to digitalize and facilitate the VAT refund to non-EU tourists within the EU. The topic of our discussion derives from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on EU tourism sector, as well as the European SMEs that have suffered significantly over the last year. We've been noticed that both the European Union and its member states have put in place a number of policy measures in order to address the economic impact of the pandemic and fill in the gaps that this crisis revealed. One of the main issues that needs to be addressed is the need to enhance the competitiveness and growth of tourism within the EU and to create a more sustainable, digital, green and resilient tourism industry. So, hosting today Mr. Ziv Tirosh, we would like to discuss on a particular topic, the VAT refund market, and how digitalizing this market within the EU will achieve the objectives we mentioned before. So I would like to welcome you, Ziv, in our discussion. And
thank you, Theo, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And could you tell us a bit more about your vision and your ideas of how digitalizing the VAT refund sector can boost the competitiveness of the industry within EU, but also bring more economic benefits for all EU member states?
Sure. So first of all, maybe just to describe to those who are less aware, within the EU and within each country of the EU, non-European tourists have a right to a refund of their full VAT when they are visiting the EU, shopping for goods, and then taking these goods out of Europe with them. This should be quite straightforward. Average VAT in the EU is on average 21%, where in Greece it's 24%. And this, of course, should be a great incentive to have travelers spend more money. The problem is that this scheme is basically, unfortunately, very, very old and anachronistic and really not working around Europe. To give you a live example, before coming here today, I came to Athens, of course. I went and I bought a couple of shirts in one of the big European fashion brands, and I asked for my VAT refund. I am an Israeli, non-European. I'm allowed to do that. I bought the two shirts, and this is the receipt that I received in order to get my VAT refund back. It's a never-ending piece of paper that every tourist receives in order to take their VAT. Look at this thing. This is unbelievable. This is the 21st century, and this is what you come up with. At any store, this is what you get, full of bureaucracy, paperwork, and unfortunately, inside are also hidden commissions that the travelers are being charged with, unbeknownst to the traveler. This format is not serviceable within small, medium businesses. So 80% of businesses around Europe basically don't know how to offer VAT refunds and cannot use this as an incentive for the traveler. And there are more difficulties along the way. In other words, instead of having this fully digitalized and creating value both for travelers and for local retail, this is still, I don't know, in the 19th century of paperwork and completely, or almost completely non-digital, and with different agendas in the middle.
So I understand from what you say that it's not only about non-EU consumers, tourists that will benefit from an easier and more transparent process, digital process, especially in 2021 and beyond. But I understand that it's also European small and medium-sized enterprises, as you mentioned, that will have access to tourists who are now are not aware or are ignoring European SMEs, for example, when visiting Greece or Spain, in order to purchase goods. And at this point, I think it's important to mention that we've noticed over the last year that all member states and all national governments have taken a number of measures which aim to addressing the short-term the economic impact of the pandemic on European small and medium-sized enterprises. But I think it's very important that both the European Commission, the European Union, and national governments design and implement a number of medium and long-term strategies to allow European SMEs to rapidly recover. And that's where digitalizing the VAT refund sector comes in and adds value in our discussion, since, especially for the European South, let's say, tourism represents the heavy industry. So by allowing all these enterprises to attract non-EU tourists, and I know that from your experience as an Israeli visitor, in the EU you've suffered all this bureaucratic process.
By the way, this is why we formed Refundit, because as non-Europeans traveling to Europe very often, we suffer. We know in theory that we can obtain our VAT back, but if you ask the average non-European tourist, he will tell you, you can't really get it, it's too bureaucratic, it's too complicated, and even if you make the effort, because you have to fill these, you have these forms at the store, then you have to stand in line at the airport, and to get a customs stamp, and then you have to go to stand in another line to get your VAT refund through one of the existing facilitators. It's very, very complicated. There are hidden commissions along the way because, unfortunately, as part of the problems, it's not the only problem, but as part of the problems, there is a monopoly here in the middle, which is basically blocking competition, ensuring that they continue earning these very, very high commissions. I'm going to go back to my paperwork again. There is a hidden commission here of 41%. So I was supposed to receive 15.64 euros, but this note says that I receive only 9. So 6 point something euros just disappear along the way, and that is because someone is extracting. It's not written anywhere. It's not mentioned. The commission isn't mentioned. There are many problems here. The stakeholders that will really, really see value from a fully digital problem are three: tourists, retailers all over Europe, the big ones as well as the small ones, the ones in the islands, in the small rural areas, etc., and also government. With a fully digital system, government has better fraud control, better control of data. They can review tourism information, retail information. They can share information regarding possible fraudsters with other EU countries. There are many, many, many values here. When I say this, I will immediately clarify that this, of course, the solution that we at Refundit have created is fully GDPR compliant. There's no question about it. I started saying before that we started Refundit from Israel, myself and my partner, who is a world-renowned high-tech entrepreneur. His name is Uri Levine. He's the founder of Waze and one of the first investors in MoveIt, which is also a unicorn. And we did this because we feel the pain personally when traveling to Europe. It's really time to fix this. It's really, really required. And the pandemic just really strengthened the need to go out there and create a digital solution that can really support local tourism. I think that Europe right now really is hungry to reignite tourism, to increase tourist spending. Tourists are coming here, you want them to spend money. A digital solution helps them increase tourist spending because they are in control of the process. They have an app, they can see exactly how much refund they're getting back. They're going to spend this further money for their own benefit, but also for the benefit of the local economy.
So I understand that, of course, as you mentioned, in order to recover also post-pandemic, it's essential to digitalize many sectors, among other tourism, as we previously explained. And you very well mentioned that your system allows access to a number of data, big data. It uses artificial intelligence to have access and process the data and allow governments, to add value not only on the development of the tourism industry, but also on other segments. So I would like to ask you, I understand that you have explained all these points to national governments or stakeholders, as you mentioned before, across the EU. Are there any challenges that you have faced when trying to make clear what value you will add in the development of the competitiveness and the growth of the tourism sector? And if so, how have you managed to address this?
Well, governments, of course, are big organizations. It sometimes takes them time to move forward. I think it's clear to all that the world is moving into the digital era. Governments in Europe, but all over the world, are in different stages of digitalizing all of their systems. So there is no question about the fact that this system will be digitalized. I think that what we are offering here is a rapid digitalization in a very neutral way that creates value for all involved. We're having very good dialogues with governments practically all over Europe. Of course, there are challenges. Some are bureaucratic challenges, political, legal. We are in the midst of dealing with this. We also, as a young startup, I will call ourselves the David of this industry. We're dealing with a Goliath because, as I said, there's a monopoly here in the middle. It's called Global Blue. They are 70% holders of this market. And they've unfortunately built the system in a way that really maintains the current structure, because, let's say, this paperwork, again, is something that is very convenient for them. Travelers don't have power in their hands. They are locked into working only with them. They don't know how much VAT they're being charged. It's really, unfortunately, a business that is built on ignorance, and it's a business of the past. So we're dealing with convincing governments, but we also have a Goliath here, that we need to be fighting or competing with. We have just recently submitted a complaint against Global Blue to the European Antitrust Authority, DG Comp, because we think it's crucial that DG Comp investigates and really puts an end to this business scheme that is completely unacceptable in the 21st century, regardless of the need to promote travel. But it must be transparent. The power must be in the hands of the traveler to choose with which facilitator they work with. This should be a prerogative of the traveler. This is a right of the traveler. Today, it's basically the store that has an exclusivity arrangement with, in most cases, Global Blue, telling the traveler, oh, you want your refund, you can get it only via our facilitator. And this, of course, creates this lockup. There are more problems here in this existing reality, because then Global Blue, after charging the traveler commissions that can reach up to 50% and 60%, they then share these commissions with the retailers, basically to ensure these exclusivity arrangements. I will just mention that on the shopping that I did today, I'm paying a 41% commission. Think about it for a moment.
It's extremely high.
Which economic, this is a minor facilitating service for a refund that I should be getting according to the law. Why would anyone charge me 41%? And the only reason I would accept to this is because I don't know about it. And of course, there is a problem that I don't have any options right now. So all of this really needs to end. And we are pushing to promote this as quickly as possible around Europe.
So I'm sure you mentioned the complaint you just submitted. I'm pretty sure that the European Commission will look into the issue, as several EU policymakers, but also lawmakers, are trying to and are aiming to implement the digitalization agenda post-COVID recovery. And I know that earlier today, the forum hosted a number of panels where it was the recovery and resilience of the European economy was discussed. And taking into account that tourism represents a high percentage of the GDP for many member states, especially for Greece, can you please explain more detail or give us some examples of numbers? So how would the national economy of Greece, for example, benefit if the system is digitalized, and how this can make the Greek economy more competitive in terms of numbers?
Well, we have performed economic studies in quite a few European countries, asking the question, how would a fully digital, fully democratic system for VAT refunds, putting the power in the hands of the traveler, how it would affect local economy, and what interests, of course, the authorities, how would it affect tax collection? Because the immediate fear is, oh no, if this will be efficient, more refunds would be demanded and money will come out of the, of the government coffers. Well, the reality actually is that if the system is fully efficient digitally, and travelers know while traveling exactly how much refund they're getting back, these travelers are going to spend double during their vacation. And this will create a reality in which, through different types of taxation, the government coffers will be filled not less, but with double the taxation that is relevant today. So we're talking about a country like Greece, we're talking about 200 to 300 million euros of taxation per year with a fully efficient digital solution. And again, with happy travelers, with happy retailers, with the reality that every small store in the rural areas of mainland Greece, on the islands, every small store can basically participate in the scheme. Today, this is not the reality. Today, the businesses that can offer VAT refunds, and I will refer to this once again, are only the big brands. The big brands in the centers of the big cities all over Europe. Smaller businesses cannot deal with this bureaucracy, and they're basically out of the loop. So really, if there is a incentive here to promote local businesses through this scheme, it's completely failing right now, and a fully digital solution will solve that.
That's great. I think the experience you've shared over the last few minutes demonstrates that it's an essential, let's say, move toward digitalizing the VAT refund market, and of course, as we mentioned before, enhancing the competitiveness and growth of the tourism industry in Greece. Just as a comment, I know that during the pandemic, everybody has been extremely scared and having physical contact or exchanging or touching things. So I think we need to stress that such a digital solution will allow a completely contactless process.
That, of course, goes without saying. A digital solution would nullify the need for exchange of paperwork and for exchange of hands, and for the queues at the airport. Most of them will not happen. The whole process will be digital at the airport as well. So customs will evaluate the requests digitally before the traveler arrives at the airport. You will not need to see these long queues for the VAT refunds. If you've seen them, in some European airports, you can have 100 people standing in line for this tax refund. And all of that, of course, is not something you want post-pandemic.
So in the few minutes we have left, I would like to have your conclusion before closing this discussion about how what's your vision for the years to come, in the short also and the long term, and how you think overall your contribution will add value. Just a short sentence as a conclusion.
This is my second startup. I am here because I believe in doing good and in building a business while making the world a better place. And this goes for my partner, Uri Levine. This goes for my members of my board of directors, for the investors of Refundit, who include, amongst others, Amadeus, which is the Madrid-based giant of travel IT. Portugal Ventures is invested in us, and several other financial groups. We want to do good, to build a business while doing good. This area is broken, needs fixing, and when it's fixed, it will create real value for every relevant stakeholders. Travelers, retail all over the country, all over Europe, and governments all over Europe with a lot of knowledge and power and big data that will support them in so many processes, in so many decision makings, that it goes without saying. And we are not going to let go of this until we make this happen.
I'm glad to hear that. Just as a conclusion on my side, I think what you mentioned is very important, and it demonstrates that innovative ideas have to be welcomed in the European Union. and especially as a foreign investor, Refundit needs to find a stable and flexible at the same time legal and regulatory framework within the EU, and I know that it might happen that there is fragmentation among EU member states when it comes, for example, to legislative issues that can help you launch the application or digitalize the market. But I think at the same time, and I know very well that in Brussels, both the European Parliament and the European Commission are working in that regard. You mentioned before the DG-Comp, which is working more on the competition side of things, but at the same time, there is an ongoing strategy in order to boost tourism, but also SMEs growth. So I very much expect over the following months, allowing the fast recovery, to see all these very nice and creative ideas being implemented both in Greece but elsewhere in Europe. So I think with this point, I would like to conclude our discussion, and thank you very much for being here with us today, coming from Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.